Initially, we were making around like 18K a year in our business. And then when we hired a business coach, we went pretty quickly to 50K a year and still doing organic marketing. And then when we started doing ads, we went to 150K a year. And then the year after that, it went to 300K a year and up to like 460K a year after that, when we started running ads.
In this episode of the Digital Trailblazer podcast, we're going to speak with Viktoriya and Oksana, who are going to tell us how they are getting health and wellness coaching clients with paid ads. So stay tuned.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now let's get to it with today's guest.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Todd Getz, your host of the Digital Trailblazer podcast. And with me today is Viktoriya and Oksana. Welcome to the podcast. Can you give us a quick introduction? Let us know what you do and how you help people.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us today. And my sister and I, we are twins. And over the last decade, we've been known for helping people rapidly reverse chronic inflammation from the comfort of their own home without supplements or complicated protocols. And we are also peer-reviewed, published immunology scientists. So we use science-based approach to teach them how to create healthy immune system and repair their cells in the body.
This is one of the things where people are building a business online, and there's two things that they really struggle with. Number one is the messaging, but number two, and this is almost more important, is getting seen and getting noticed, generating traffic, generating leads. And I suppose even to test a message, you need to have that traffic. And so this is typically one of the very first things that we work on. And if we can overcome this hurdle, like so many other things in their business are so much easier, because we can test, we can get numbers back, and then we can refine and grow. But without that, it's like you're trying to squeeze water from a rock. And so many times we see people get stuck with trying a webinar strategy and they don't make sales. And then they think to themselves, okay, well, webinars don't work. Let's do a challenge. And then they do a challenge and they don't make any sales. And then again, they blame the strategy. Whereas when we really dig into things as to why they failed, we'll look at things like, okay, well, how many registrants did you get? How many people showed up? How many people opened the email after the webinar? And what we'll find out is that they just had very few numbers. Like they had a dozen people attend a webinar. And it's like, okay, well, we need more numbers before we can say whether this was a success or a failure. So I think what you're doing and what we're going to go into today is going to be one of those things that's going to be really helpful for people, because paid ads is just one of those things. I mean, it's a shortcut. If you've got even just a little bit of money that you can put into paid ads, your business can go so much bigger and faster. So why don't we just kind of start from the beginning? How did you start building your business in the first place? Did you start with paid ads or did you start with something else?
Yeah, so we started organically. Well, first of all, we worked with clients locally around 2016. And in 2017, I hired a coaching program. And it took us about 2 years to build authority on Facebook. That's where we started. We started on Facebook. We were just starting out with a Facebook page in 2016, but it took us about 2 years to learn about organic marketing, as well as how to get a message out there and also share our client results. So I would say it took us about 2 years to really build that authority, because people didn't know anything about us. And we were just working with some clients locally, but in terms of like social media, we didn't have social media presence. So it took us 2 years to build that social media presence. And that's when everything took off after we started running ads.
Now, do you feel like you could have run ads sooner than that? Or did you feel like you needed to do that organic stuff first in order to even be successful with ads?
So we didn't have a budget for it because initially we were making around like 18K a year in our business. And then when we hired a business coach, we went pretty quickly to 50K a year and still doing organic marketing. And then when we started doing ads, we went to 150K a year. And then the year after that, it went to 300K a year and up to like 460K a year after that when we started running ads.
So tell us about the ad strategy, because I think that's what people really want to get into here. First of all, what are you running ads to? Is it a webinar? Is it a VSL? Is it a Facebook group? Or is it just a quick PDF download? Like, what are you running ads to in order to start this process?
So what really worked for us is doing both webinar and VSL. So we've been running ads to a cold audience, to either the webinar that they can watch or the VSL where they can watch a replay. And we were one of the first people, I think, in a market to, especially like autoimmune market, to do retargeting with client testimonials. So a lot of times with our offer, there's a lot of restrictions, like you can't say certain things, but we were using where clients talked about the benefits that they received working with us. And this was actually a retargeting ad that was generating us the most calls, booked, and revenue. So it was not the main ad, is what we were retargeting people with that got us to like 12x and up to 20x ROI on ads.
So just to be clear here, so the webinar, was that a live webinar that you were doing?
We did the live and also the recording as well.
Okay, and so the recording is what you call the VSL.
Yes.
Okay, did you notice a difference between those two as far as the results? Like, were you getting better results with the live versus the recording?
We didn't really notice the difference, and I think it's because mostly it's a retargeting that was really like getting people on the call, not the VSL itself. People were interested, they were signing up, but we needed to have like a follow-up process.
Okay, interesting. So that first interaction was kind of like their introduction to you and to what you do. And then the call to action at the end of the webinar or the VSL, was that always to book a call, or was there something to buy at the end of that?
We've been doing the book a call. Just recently we started doing low ticket, but book a call really worked for us.
Okay, so book a call, and then after the webinar, then you would do a retargeting ad. Was it just testimonials, or were you retargeting with other things as well?
It was just different type of testimonials that we used with clients who worked with us. And then the link was to schedule a call. So most of our calls actually came from that ad, not even like the mailing list. It was most like the ad that they were seeing right after they saw us initially.
Wow, okay. Now, those testimonials, were those you interviewing one of your clients, or was it just a client who had made a video for you and sent it in that you were using?
It was us interviewing the clients, but we were cutting it short, so like 30 seconds. And we picked the part where they talked like the benefits that they've seen working with us, things that they've tried. So we were cutting it short where it would be what we want them, like what we wanted other people to see or hear. They talked about the results that they got in a short amount of time.
I know that we've got to do that. Whenever we use a testimonial in marketing, we've typically got to do a lot of that, just cutting to the things that are relevant that people really want to hear, if we're using it for a short or for a marketing. And then we'll typically have like the full interview somewhere on our website where they can see the full thing. But yeah, I think a lot of times when people give testimonials or reviews, a lot of times they tend to ramble and they have one or two really good nuggets in there that you want to pull out. Okay, so you were just pulling out those gold nuggets, and it was mostly where they were talking about the result that they got and maybe like a before and after sort of explanation, right?
Oh yeah, we also retarget videos where our clients addressed objections. So we would ask them a question based on the calls we had with people, like one of the main objections. So clients would answer that question, like why they decided to do a program instead of somebody else. So we did that as well.
Now, how did you get these in the first place? Like, did you email your clients, or do you work closely enough with your clients where you could just ask them on a call to do an interview with you or a case study? How did you gather these testimonials in the first place?
We do work with our clients very closely. We work with each person one-on-one, so we built really good relationship with them. But another thing that really made our program stand out is that our clients get rapid results. So within 6 weeks, we've had clients who were getting off their medications, reducing or either the need for medications or becoming completely symptom-free from joint pain or they had hair loss, their hair started growing back. So we had a graduation call with each client. And during that graduation call, we talked about the next steps, and it was a Zoom call. And then we asked them to share the results that they've seen with us. And our clients, they do sign an agreement that we may use their video either to share with other clients or for marketing purposes. So it was already listed in the agreement that we may or may not use anything that we record in a program, either our client classes or the client testimonial. So they were already aware of that, but it was actually the graduation call with us where they were sharing all of that progress.
Nice. Yeah, I like that idea of having that wrap-up call or graduation call. Otherwise, people just disappear, and it's kind of hard to get them back on the phone or back on a Zoom call to kind of wrap things up. So how long of a process was that? Like, how long do you work with your clients before you do that graduation call?
So we've been doing 6 to 8 weeks. So they get really excited. We noticed that when we did like longer term programs, they were kind of losing that enthusiasm towards the end. But when they are still like fresh in the program, we help them get incredible improvements. So they're really excited. But most importantly is that they learn the tools, the knowledge, they're feeling better. And that's when we hold that graduation call.
I think that's really important because I know we've got a longer program that our clients are going through, but we'll typically do some sort of a check-in within a couple of weeks or within a month just to see how they're progressing and what they need help with. And if they're doing well, that's exactly when we would ask them, okay, well, would you like to do just a quick interview with us or a case study or give us a review or something? We'll ask for something where they can share the results, but we try to do that within the first 1-2 months. And then also anytime throughout the program, whenever they say they had, oh my goodness, I got another client or, this great thing happened. Anytime that happens, we're always asking them, okay, great. Can you write a review for that? Or could you give us a testimonial? Or could you just make a post on Facebook so we can screenshot it? So anytime they're coming back with something good, I know that we're always asking them for that. And that's something you got to actively do. You can't just expect people to, just randomly send you a video or write a post. All right. So you're retargeting with these videos. Do you have a script that you follow when you're interviewing people on these testimonial videos?
So the main question that we ask is we go over their progress, but we just ask those objections that we've heard from other people. Like, for example, what have you tried to do before? Why did you decide to work with us and not somebody else? What did stand out to you from other people that you've seen who could also, that you could potentially work with? Or what makes a process different compared to other doctors that they worked with? So they should explain the difference. And it's just the main objections that people ask us. We ask our clients. And also we ask them, how much money did you spend working with? We've had some clients who spent $15,000 to $30,000 and some of them $100,000. And then they do mention that our program is like a lot more affordable compared to even annual visits with the doctors that they were seeing every single year.
That's really smart. I like that idea of handling the objections with the testimonials, because you think about the progression of things. And if somebody had registered for a webinar or a VSL, and by the end of that, they should already have a good understanding of what you do and who you are and why what you do works. But if at that point someone hasn't bought or joined, it's because they've got these lingering questions. It's because they've got these objections that haven't been answered in the main webinar or VSL. And so if you're retargeting them with the content that they need that will answer those questions, that will get them over that barrier, that makes sense. I know for us in our email follow-up after a webinar, we'll typically do that, but we haven't done it before with testimonials. It's typically just a piece of content that we create ourselves. But I can see it would be much more powerful to have somebody else say it rather than you say it. So I really like that strategy. So you're retargeting with these testimonials. As far as your ad budget goes, how much are you spending on the front end to get registrants for the webinar? And then how much are you spending on the back end to do the retargeting? Because I know that there's a difference. If you've got so much to spend on ads, how much are you allocating towards the webinar versus the retargeting?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the numbers of our best campaigns. So what I have here is that I know that we were spending like around $45 cost per call. And this is overall cost per call that include the retargeting and the cold ad. So I think at most it was like $100 towards like later years where the costs went up on ads. but the best one was like $45 cost per call. And then total, we were spending around like $2,000 to $3,000 a month on ads, and majority was going into the main ad. And then I think like around 400 a month on retargeting.
Okay. So if you're spending, say, $3,000 per month, 2,500 of that would be going towards the webinar, and then 400 or 500 for the retargeting. Yeah, I think that gives people a good idea. And that makes sense because getting the initial registration, I mean, that's always, to a cold audience, that's always the most expensive part. And then the retargeting ad, since it's already a warm audience, should be a lot cheaper. Well, also the campaign objective is different too, right? I assume that your initial registration campaign for the webinar, that's going to be the campaign objective. And we're talking Facebook ads here, right? The campaign objective is going to be conversions to get the registrant for the webinar. Is that right?
Leads. Yeah, we were optimizing for leads.
Leads. And then on the retargeting campaign, since these are videos, is the campaign objective video views, or is it clicks, or is it engagement, or is it something else?
So optimizing for calls booked, but we were using audiences. We had different types of audience. We would retarget people who watched a certain amount of our videos, or we would retarget even people who watched like the main video, because we were doing video ads as well. That would work the best for all. Is like the main is a video, just me with my phone talking about a workshop and inviting people. So we were retargeting people who watched that first ad, or who watched any of our retargeting ads, or people who have engaged with our Facebook page or visited our website. So we were retargeting different, like as many audiences as we can. And then we were using different types of lookalike audiences for the main ad.
Okay, so this paints a little bit different picture now. So with the testimonial ads, you weren't just retargeting people who had watched a webinar. You were retargeting anybody who had watched any of your other ads or who had visited your website. You were retargeting basically anybody who was familiar with you. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. So you've got the webinar registration going, and is a webinar registration only going to a cold audience, or is that going to people who have like visited a website too?
So we have different, like on Goha level, we have different funnels set up. So one funnel and one link that we use for organic marketing. So it may be the same VSL, but it's a different funnel. So we can separate it from the one that we use on the ad, but it would still be the same VSL. It's just separated two different funnels. And then we, on the Goha level, we can tag them, whether they came organically through organic link that we posted on a social media post, or whether they came from an ad. We would tag them that they came from an ad, that they came from an ad.
Okay. So the retargeting ads, people who had not even seen the webinar, or people who had not even registered for the webinar, may be getting those retargeting ads, right?
Yes.
This is so interesting because recently, within the past month, I've interviewed a few other people who are doing retargeting ads, and it was something very similar where they may have had something going on like a webinar registration or a lead magnet, like a free PDF that they were advertising for, but they also had a retargeting ad that was going out to anybody who had visited a website or interacted with them in any way. So if they had watched part of a video, if they had downloaded something, if they were on the email list, if, whatever it was, if they had bought something, they were retargeting everybody with an ad. So it was basically the same thing that you're doing, but they weren't necessarily using testimonials. They were just using other types of content. I like what you're doing with the testimonials and with the answering objections. I think that is so important because it answers those last few questions that people need before they're ready to book a call. And you imagine that if people had watched a webinar, or even if they had visited a website, they'd clicked around a bit, they'd read an article, if they had been to your YouTube channel and watched a video or something, that they're interested, they're in your audience, but they just need that little extra push to pull that trigger, right? To kind of get over that hump. I love that idea of using the testimonials to answer the objections and retargeting with that.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I always ask my clients, because I interview my clients, is I'm going over their progress. I share with them what people ask us. And I would say, well, people ask us like, will it work for me? And I would ask my client, how would you answer that question? If somebody comes to you and they ask you, will it work for me? How would you answer? So our clients share like how their thinking process, what kind of mindset they are in to be a successful client. And they would answer that question. Like if somebody's asking you, and they didn't know anything about us, like, what did you think about that objection? Like, will it work for me? And I have a client answer that, and then we would include that either in our emails, in our organic marketing or as ads? Answer to that question, like, will it work for you? Let the client answer it.
Oh, I love it. That is such a smart strategy. Now, with these calls that you're booking, so as low as $45 per booked call, which is a good cost for people who don't know like ad costs. That's a really good cost, especially when you're doing high ticket coaching and consulting and things like that. So as far as the show rate on those calls, I know that a lot of people who are doing other types of funnels, like they're doing an ad basically straight to an application and book a call. And their no-show rate on those are astronomically high. Like they may have an 80% or 90% no-show rate. Like only 10 or 20% of people actually showing to the call. And a lot of times they're not even qualified. So for you, do you see a similar show rate, or what are you getting for show rates on that call that people are booking from those ads?
No, so we get about 70% show rate, but that's because we've been optimizing funnel. So after they book a call, we send them a text message to confirm the call at least a day before to keep the call. They get several emails with the homework they should be watching, so they get to know us more and see more of our client testimonials. And if we don't hear back from them that they confirm in the call, we do cancel the call. We do text them and email it to them. So we ask them to respond back and to confirm the call. And if they don't confirm, we do cancel it. And then another thing is that qualifying questions, we do try to get to know them, like what they've tried to do, how much money they've spent. So we want to see if they are spending money on trying to find solutions. We ask them to explain more if they're in a position to be able to invest into their health. So we do ask them a question like, how much money have you spent, or do you spend a year trying to solve your problem? And then we can determine if they say like $100 a year, then we try to follow up and see if they're still open to invest more than that. Because we do have a high ticket program.
Right. Yeah. I like the way that you phrase that, how much have you spent in the past year? Because that's a good indicator of what you're willing to spend in the future. But also, it's not like a direct question of, hey, do you have money to spend? It's not like you're not asking it in an offensive way that might, like raise red flags for people. So I like that. The other thing that you mentioned that I think is really important is the homework that you give people after they booked a call, but before the call happens, you give them homework to do before they jump on the call. And that's something that we do as well. And what we found is that homework that we give them, when we make them go through that, it boosts our close rate on the call. Just, I forget exactly the numbers it was, but it was a lot. Like it really hit our bottom line, and it really helped to boost our profits when we started doing that. What do you give people for homework? Like, what are you expecting them to do before they jump on the call?
So we explain the 3 steps, making sure that they are not driving, that they are ready to just take time to speak to us. So just like basic things, and then talk about a video that explains more about what we do. Tons of client testimonials. So we divide it into different sections. So first, and read FAQ as well, where we put the most common questions, like objections that people have asked us. We put that in the FAQ, frequently asked questions. And we just try to like shorten it as much as we can. But we do ask them, people in the application, that we tell them to put a check mark that we're going to send you some materials to read. Can you agree that you're going to do that before the call? And also we ask them, if you cannot make it, you're going to let us know at least 24 hours before that you're going to make it. And then about the investment question, again, I ask them, like, how much time and energy and money have you invested into fixing your problem? And I ask them to answer, in the message box, not like a check mark. So I do ask them a few questions so they're aware that they're going to be getting the homework. They're going to be aware that they have to let us know if they cannot make it, and they have to be like share more information on that application.
Yeah, we've got a very similar process with the homework and all that. And like I said, we have that video of, what we do, how we do it, so they understand that. We have the testimonials, we have the FAQs. So I feel like we're doing a lot of the same things here. It's really neat to see that you're doing this as well, and you're getting some good results with it. Now, on the back end of that, when we look at return on ad spend, even aside from that, what is your typical close rate on a call? Like when somebody shows up on a call, how many people actually end up buying and joining?
Yes, so with the 50 to 60 calls a month on a cold, like a cold or warm audience, people who are not really been following us for a long time, maybe they just knew us for like a few months, it's 12% close rate, but I do take a lot of calls. And then there are also, for example, there were ads that are ran like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and then eventually they become a client. And then if they're more like a warm audience, or then it's like it's like 50% close rate.
I think what we found is that with that close rate, I know that a big determining factor is the price of the program. So, obviously the higher the price, we typically expect a lower close rate. And so as far as ROI and close rates and things like that, that's really going to depend a lot on the price of your program. So for you, overall return on ad spend, are you comfortable sharing like typically where you're at as far as, how much are you putting in ads and how much are you getting out?
Yes, so I did type up the numbers. So about $5 per lead, 45 cost per call. That's a best ad, but I've had up to like $150 cost per call. And then I'm getting about like 7 new clients a month. So I think the best ROI is like 12x return. But I've had a year where I had 20x ROI because, like I said, some of those clients, they joined 2 years later from like older ads.
Yeah, well, and that's something else that I've heard from people who are doing the retargeting ads as well, is that you're continually nurturing that audience over and over and over when you have those retargeting ads going. Whereas people who only target cold audiences, all they're doing is that they're getting exposure to a lot more people, but only once. And that's the thing. When you do it that way, it's like, okay, well, you've got one chance to buy or not. And if they don't buy, if they don't take action on that first one, well, they never see you again. Versus if you continually retarget them, and every time they watch a new video, they're continually getting retargeted with another video, or every time they visit your website, now they're getting retargeted again. It's like you're continually nurturing that audience. And that is such a huge part of being profitable in business, is that retargeting. There's a graphic out there. I mean, it's in the shape of a pyramid, and it shows like the different segments of your audience. And the segment of that audience that's at the very top, that's ready to buy and join like right now, that's roughly only 3% of people who you're targeting, versus there's a whole other 67% of your audience that could become customers at some point, but it's either the timing's not right, or there's questions that need to be answered, or there's something else that's getting in the way. And that's a part of your audience that if you nurture them, they will eventually become customers and clients. And that's where you're going to see the biggest ROI. And so I feel like that's why people who are running these application funnels, where you're running it just to a cold audience, you're running an ad to a VSL to book a call, and people book a call and then they don't show, and the people that do show are unqualified. And if they don't buy and join, well, then they never see or hear from you again. People who are doing that are targeting that top 3%. And yes, sometimes they're profitable if they're really good at it, but their return on ad spend is typically 2 to 3 times, maybe if they're really good, 4 times return on ad spend. Versus everybody else that I've had on this podcast that has talked about retargeting ads and really focusing on nurturing that audience that has engaged with you in some way. Those are the people that I see that have the highest ROI and the highest return on ad spend with their ads, and they're putting up like double, like you are, 12 times return on ad spend, 20 times return on ad spend. I had one lady that came in here that was doing, I think over the past 3 months, 90 times return on ad spend. It was just these insane numbers that you just don't see when all you're doing is targeting a cold audience all the time. So I think this retargeting thing is just genius, and I love the way that you're doing it. If people have not yet jumped into ads and they're not quite sure how to get started, what's some advice that you would give them? Like, what's the very first ad that you would say that they should get started with? Because obviously, well, maybe it is a retargeting ad. I mean, maybe they've got some clicks to their website. Do you start with that, or do you start with the webinar registration ad, or what do you typically start with when you get a campaign going?
Yeah, so I think it depends if you're able to do retargeting ads, if you don't have a big enough audience to retarget. And that's why I've always been getting more leads, but also we are hosting live workshops. So it's not like we are just having one system built up. We're also doing live workshops. We also have a strong organic presence. So I think starting out with like VSL or Elite even, I've also done a PDF guide, which gave me good results. It's just that the PDF guide that I put together wasn't very good, but people were interested in it. It's just that it wasn't a good guide. But I think like offering something for free, either a workshop that they can watch, something that they can download. I think that's been great and working for a lot of people. And another, like doing live workshops that you can offer to people who are in your mailing list or organic list. That's another way where they can come and get to know you better, as well as like doing other things aside from ads to continue nurturing people. But I think bringing in new leads is important. We also tried to do YouTube ads, but with YouTube ads, this was back in 2021 when we spent about 20K on the YouTube ads. But because we do personalized advertisement, we cannot retarget on YouTube. And we were only doing keywords. So we spent 20K. We were also paying for a different program, which was 20K. So after spending 40K, we only made 15K back, because with YouTube ads, it was a bunch of keywords that we're using, and it was extremely high cost. It was like $1,000 or $800 per call. So because we couldn't retarget those people, a lot of those people from YouTube, they were not on Facebook. We tried doing that for 6 months because it doesn't have like retargeting. We couldn't do retargeting on YouTube because we do personalized advertisement.
Interesting. I've heard that from a lot of people who've tried YouTube ads. It seems like there was a hot period where it was working really well. And lately I've heard people say that it's not really working so well for them right now. I mean, maybe it'll change, or maybe they'll find another strategy that works. But that's kind of what I've been hearing about YouTube ads lately, is that it isn't what it used to be. But with Facebook, and to be perfectly honest, I've heard that about Facebook too during
A lot of things have changed in the last 5 years. So with YouTube, we were doing video ad and using keywords, but it was just random people were signing up. They were just curious to see what we do. And so after we figured that out, we stopped running them. But YouTube's still been more consistent with us. Even doing organic or ads, it still worked the best for us compared to other things we tried. But we didn't try placement ads yet with YouTube.
Well, and the thing I like about, and it's not just Facebook, it's meta ads, right? It's Facebook and Instagram. The thing I like about Facebook and Instagram ads is that there's so many different ways to do it. On YouTube, you got a video ad and it goes, it clicks to a call to action. But on Facebook, you can do an engagement ad, and maybe there's probably a way you could do that on YouTube too. But Facebook, you can do engagement ads, you can do retargeting ads, you can do instant form ads. There's so many different things that you can do to build an audience, to retarget them with different offers in different ways. You can do still images, you can do videos, you can retarget video views. There's so many different ways to do this. No matter what else is going on, it's I feel like Facebook ads is always a place that people should start, and probably something that they should always have running, no matter what other types of ads that they've got going on. As far as a starting ad budget, now I know that you mentioned that some months you spend $2,000 to $3,000. Obviously, if you're brand new to this, you don't want to start there. Do you have a suggestion as to what kind of an ad budget people should start with? How much should they be spending per day, and how much would go into the initial lead generation or webinar registration ad versus the retargeting?
Yeah, so we started with $800 a month. That's what we started with, but then we scaled it up to over 1,000 because we will get in return. We noticed that we will get in return rapidly. So that's why I think even getting yourself out there, that what made our business scale so fast. It was the ads, but then I did hire a sales coach, and I paid about $15,000 per 6 months to improve my sales. So I also invested into that. My close rate did go up from 12% to I think 60%, but it didn't stay there because I stopped working with a coach. So I think it even up when I was in the program for 6 months, and then it kind of went down after that. But I think hiring people, but if you don't have budget, I mean, you can try to figure out on your own, but then you risk getting your ad shut down. So there's also a risk at that. If you say something you don't know, then you can shut down your whole account, and that's going to be another issue.
I've kind of heard a few rumblings about that lately Facebook has been kind of cracking down on the health and wellness industry as far as ads and compliance with their policies.
Well, it happened to us in 2021. We actually had 2 ad accounts shut down because in one of them, I was running that ad that was really working well for us with clients, but I did a new one, and Facebook doesn't like when you do within 30 days when you write it in a copy, and they don't like using client's name, but by mistake, because I used that video from our organic posts, and I didn't remove a client name in the text. And that's why I got shut down, because I was using a person's name in the copy.
They've got so many rules and they're there for a reason. I understand that. But what I don't like is how they handle it when you break the rules. Totally innocent, unintentional, and you would follow the rules if they just told you, hey, you need to change this thing. But typically what they do is they say, oh, breaking the rules, let's shut down your whole ad account and you can't run ads anymore. And it's a huge disruption to your business. But what I like about your story is that you still found a way to open up another ad account, which a lot of people, they have so much trouble doing that. And it's technically, I think it's against Facebook's rules to do that, but people do it anyways. I know that
Well,
we've
it
had,
happened to us twice. We had to get a new domain, new credit card, new Facebook page, but we were still able to do that and get return on ads. So I think if people who are starting out $60 to $80, I would say a day, I think the more you spend, the faster you can learn to see what works for you.
Exactly. And like you said, like there's a whole process you need to go through in order to get a new ad account. Like you said, if you use the same credit card that you use that's connected to the old ad account, you could have a new profile, you could have a new business page and all that. And if you connect up that old credit card, they're going to shut you down immediately and you got to start all over. So you got to know all the new stuff that you need to create in order to do this right so that you don't get shut down immediately again. So even if you get shut down by Facebook, there's always ways to get back in. So it's not the end of the world. I know for us, we've had ads account shut down in the past and we've always come back from it. And it was for silly reasons. I remember one time it was because we had somebody that was managing our ads for us. And he told us that, hey, I've had a few other clients get their ads account shut down. We're not quite sure why yet, but it would be smart for you to open up some extra ad accounts so that if one gets shut down, you can still run ads without disruption. And he told me that, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and open up a bunch of ad accounts. I opened up like 20 ad accounts. I don't know why, but Facebook let me do it. And so I opened up 20 different ad accounts. And that got me shut down. And there was no coming back from. They did not want to hear anything about it. They saw that I opened up all these ad accounts and they said, yep, nope, you cannot advertise at all. I had to get a new personal just like you, new personal profile, new business page, new everything in order to get back up and running again. But it wasn't even like I was running non-compliant ads. I had just done something that they didn't like and they just said that's the end of it. But I came back and put on the disguise and pretended like I was a different person, and here I am. So
Yes. And I also have heard from like agency who were running ads for other companies, like one of them got hacked and then everything else got like hacked. So that's another thing you have to be careful with, is if you hire someone like an ad agency, you want to see like if they know that they can help you, but also like making sure that they haven't been hacked before, because it happened to somebody who started like selling things through their ads because the agency got hacked.
yep, and that can do it too. And it's one of the things people will do is that they'll hire appointment setters to log into their personal Facebook account to message people. Whenever that happens, if you've got ads running, that is one of the most dangerous things you can do, because typically you're hiring people from like India and Pakistan and these countries halfway around the world. And if you've got an ad account, if you've got a business page, if you've got whatever it is, whatever other assets on Facebook, if Facebook sees that somebody halfway across the world is logging into your personal account, to them that looks like somebody has hacked your account, and then they suspend it and they shut it down until you go through a verification process, which can take months. And so that's one of the other ways I've seen people get shut down, is that they've hired a cheap VA or a cheap appointment setter from across the world to log into their personal account, and they get shut down for it. So it's one of those risks that I just don't think is worth taking, especially if you've got business assets and an audience on Facebook, because you'll lose it all as soon as that happens. So this has been a really fascinating conversation. I mean, it aligns so perfectly with what we've heard in the past and what we've done. And I love that you figured it out for yourself and that it's working so well for you.
Well, we did hire someone that we worked with from like 20. We actually had a business coach from 2017 until 2022, and that business coach, he closed that company, and then we hired somebody else. So we've always been working with somebody where we learn from other business owners and also testing things ourselves. So I think if we wouldn't have hired people, we wouldn't have had such a success in a business, or maybe it would have taken us a lot longer. Yeah, but we also have the staff. So my sister and I, we work very well together. We kind of divide our roles, so we were able to make money without having any staff. Yeah, but that could have been also a disadvantage, because we could have scaled a lot more, because I couldn't take more calls. Like we tried hiring someone, it didn't work out, and then we just get busy with client fulfillment. But my sister and I work well together where we divide our roles, so we don't fight with each other. Otherwise, we tell each other, you're doing this wrong. And then if I just give it to her, I don't get involved in her stuff.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because my wife and I worked together to build our business as well. At the very beginning, we thought that we were just both going to learn all aspects of the business so that either of us could be interchangeable and we'd both know, where the bodies are buried. And that was the expectation that we kind of went into this with. And I don't think it ever lasted more than a day or two. It worked much better when we each had our own jobs to do and we each had our own area of expertise. But I think it's very similar to you. The thing that we had to learn to do and kind of grow into was that whole personal development part. It's easy to accept that I myself, have to fail and learn from my failures. It is very hard to accept that my wife has to fail and go through those failures when I think I know better. That's, I think, one of the toughest parts in having a partnership, especially if it's somebody that you're related to or that you're married to, is seeing the other person fail when you think that you know the answer. But that experience of going through the failure and learning from it and being able to overcome that is so important in building resilience and excellence in your business. It's just one of those things that once you learn how to do that and once you see that, okay, my wife is doing this thing, oh, she failed with it, and just being okay with that and just knowing that she's going to keep persisting and she's going to get it. And if she has her own area of expertise and she's going to be good at that and I'm not, she knows more about that than I do. And just being able to accept that, I think, is so important. And each being able to respect each other's personal development journey. Now, I know that we've kind of talked about a lot of different things here. And like I said, your story is fascinating. And I love this. I think this has been such high value that you've given here in the podcast. But there's probably a lot more that people want to know and probably things that they want to ask you. If people want to get a hold of you, how can they find you online?
Well, we're on all social media platforms. It's just Viktoriya and Oksana. And this is a Facebook page, YouTube, Instagram. My sister also, she likes shark diving. So she posts a lot of shark diving videos that she films herself. That's her passion. So we like to share a little bit about us, how we came from Ukraine. Our dad came to US in his 40s with just $300. And I think that's where we get this from him, because he came here with nothing and he was able to build us a better life. And that's why we wanted to have a better life for ourselves, to have more freedom and just have better experiences, because you get to meet more people versus like when you work 9 to 5, that's all you know. But when you're a business owner, entrepreneur, you get to meet other amazing people and realize like what can be possible for you. So we are on all social media platforms, Viktoriya and Oksana.
All right. Yes, great. And as a note to our listeners, Viktoriya is not in an American spelling of Victoria. It's Viktoriya. And then Oksana is Oksana. But we will have the links for all of that in the show notes. So if you missed that spelling, it'd be easier just to click the link in the show notes to check them out. And we'll have links to all of your other social media sites there as well. And you also have a freebie for our audience, don't you?
Yes, we have a VSL workshop where we teach people like why certain things haven't been working for them for their health, but as well as what they need to do and change in order to be able to rapidly improve their health. So it's a workshop where we teach people like the old things that haven't been working, why they're no longer working, and what we need to do differently in this day and age.
Awesome. And we will have the link for that in the show notes as well. So be sure to check that out. Viktoriya, Oksana, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was an amazing discussion. I really appreciate having you on the podcast today.
Well, thanks for having us.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.